to talk about Tupac, which I wasn't committed to, but then I watched the doc. So
didn't know you were getting that.
You have a lot of people saying stuff in there that makes it sound like maybe he was responsible for that murder, which has never been proven. That's a very serious thing.
But you have Keefe D over in Vegas now, getting ready to go on trial for that case, saying those things.
Who shot Tupac?
I already know who shot. I believe in karma. I believe in all of that.
We are here today to announce the arrest of Keefe D for the murder of Tupac Shakur.
Burn, motherfucker, you deserve to die. Talking about you getting money, but it's funny to me. All you niggas living for me while you fucking with me.
Right after I heard Tupac got shot, and I was so weak, I damn near fell over. I immediately flew to Vegas, and I walked in the room, and I seen him laid out on the bed with all kind of tools in him. And his mom came over to me, and she grabbed me, she held me up, and she said, "Baby, you got to be strong." And I went and sat next to him and whispering to him, telling him I loved him and to hold on, and he was gonna be okay. And even in that moment, his mom was thinking more about me than herself and showing me how to love strong.
I told you can't trust these. Now, Puffy done killed Tupac, man.
50 Cent went on stage last year and said this.
Maybe I said it because you got Tupac.
You know, and I know, that everyone believes that Diddy was involved in both these shootings and had a direct involvement in your brother's death. That is what the streets have said for 27 years. That's why 50 Cent said it. That's why Eminem has said similar stuff. Would you be comfortable saying that you believe Diddy had nothing to do with it?
No, I wouldn't be comfortable saying that because I don't know. If you look at all the theories, the theory involving him is quite high on the list.
Ron, any comments? Any comments on the trial so far? Any opening statements?
He's having his day.
He's having his day?
He's having his day. We trust the justice system.
Thank you, sir.
God is good.
For nearly 3 decades, one question has followed hip-hop like a shadow. Did Sean Diddy Combs have anything to do with Tupac Shakur's death? And did Keefe D play a role? Most people avoided the question. Some dismissed it as rumor. Others whispered it only behind closed doors. Now 50 Cent is speaking, not with accusations, but with logic, patterns, and timing. Before we go deeper, make sure you like this video, subscribe to our channel, and hit the bell icon so you never miss any update, because this story isn't about headlines. It's about how power, money, and silence intersected in the 1990s. This video does not claim guilt. It examines allegations, public statements, and why certain questions refuse to disappear. Let's break it down.
That claimed, which we know wasn't true.
Yeah, Chad, we don't talk about things that are nonsense. We don't even entertain nonsense, my brother. So we're not even going to go there, with all due respect, but I appreciate you as a journalist asking. Thank you.
Because you listen, 7 years ago, I'd have been like, yo, did you hire somebody to kill Pac? But no, you do it like a journalist.
Yeah, no, I mean, we wouldn't even get into nonsense like that. You know what I'm saying? It's nonsense.
Which we never believed, by the way.
Yeah, thank you.
We heard from the former president of Bad Boy, Kirk Burroughs, who alleged during this time, Diddy had him hiring a whole bunch of people and getting cars to drive to Las Vegas. And he is now very curious into why Diddy wanted to do this. And he said, in his opinion, he now believes that Diddy was behind taking out Tupac.
For years, one question has quietly followed hip-hop. Not loudly, not publicly, but persistently. A question linking Sean Diddy Combs, Keefe D, and Tupac Shakur. This was never a new theory created by the internet, long before podcasts, YouTube breakdowns, or viral clips. This question already existed, discussed quietly in back rooms, studio hallways, and private conversations. People spoke about it carefully, often indirectly, and almost never on record. What's important is where this question lived. It didn't live in headlines. It didn't live in official reports. It lived in silence. Fans kept asking because fans weren't exposed to the same risks. They weren't worried about lawsuits, industry backlash, or losing access. From the outside, the lack of clear answers only made the mystery deeper. Insiders, on the other hand, avoided the question. Not because they all shared the same belief, but because engaging with it came at a cost. Saying the wrong thing could end relationships. Saying too much could invite legal trouble. and saying anything at all could make you the center of a story no one wanted to own. So instead of answers, there was distance. Interviews redirected, questions softened, details left vague. And that silence did something unexpected. It kept the question alive. Because unanswered questions don't disappear. They linger. When no clear explanation is ever given, people assume there's a reason. Silence begins to feel intentional. Avoidance begins to look like protection. Over time, the lack of closure became more suspicious than any rumor. If the theory had been completely false, many believed it would have collapsed under scrutiny. And instead it stayed intact. Not because it was proven, but because it was never fully confronted. That's why this question refused to go away. Not because everyone believed it, but because no one was willing to settle it. And in hip-hop, especially at that level of money and influence, silence is never empty. It carries weight. It signals risk. It suggests that certain topics are better left untouched. So while fans kept asking why, insiders focused on survival. And that gap between curiosity and caution is exactly where this question has lived for decades. Still unanswered, still uncomfortable, still waiting for someone willing to face it head on.
Puff took Tupac blueprint and changed Biggs and Bad Boy in image. I Get Around, talked about how fly you was, how many girls you mess with, how many cars you drive, how much money you got, what you willing to do. He took his image. Pac was the first one on the scene wearing Versace shirts. He went and got the same Versace shirts Pac had. Which, all right, some dudes would do that. You would never catch me wearing something else, something that somebody else got. He was knocking down all the women that he thought Pac was knocking down. And what I mean is having sex with them. Why would you want to have sex with women you know for sure a dude that was once cool with you was dealing with?
When Keefe D decided to speak publicly about the night Tupac Shakur was shot in Las Vegas, the entire conversation shifted. For decades, Tupac's death lived in speculation. Different theories circulated, but none carried direct ownership. Stories were told about events, rarely from someone claiming proximity to them. Keefe D changed that. In multiple public appearances and recorded statements, Keefe D claimed firsthand knowledge of the events surrounding that night in Las Vegas. He didn't present himself as a distant observer or someone repeating street rumors. He spoke as someone placing himself close to the situation, close enough to describe movements, conversations, and people involved. That distinction matters. Speculation can be dismissed. A first-person account cannot be ignored so easily. And this is also where the conversation became far more sensitive. Because when Keefe D spoke, names entered the discussion, including Sean Diddy Combs. Not as proven facts, not as legal conclusions, but as part of a broader narrative Keefe D claimed to have knowledge of. That alone changed the stakes. However, it's equally important to understand what Keefe D did not say. He did not present court-verified evidence. He did not deliver a legal confession in a trial setting, and he did not provide documentation that settled the case. His statements existed in a complex space, public, recorded, but still subject to scrutiny and investigation. That's why careful wording matters so much in a case like this. Keefe D's claims didn't prove conclusions, but they forced attention. Once statements are on record, they can be examined. He challenged and investigated, and that's exactly what happened. Law enforcement interest renewed. Old files were revisited. Prior assumptions were questioned, and for the first time in years, the case moved out of dormancy and back into public focus. This renewed attention wasn't because everything Keefe D said was immediately accepted. It was because ignoring it was no longer possible. There's a crucial difference here that 50 Cent has subtly pointed to. Talk is cheap. Ownership is expensive. Keefe D took ownership of a narrative, and whether people believed him or not, that act alone carried consequences. It shifted responsibility from rumor to record, At the same time, Keefe D was careful. His wording avoided absolute claims in certain areas. He framed parts of the story as knowledge, not confession. And that careful balance, saying enough to be heard, but not enough to seal outcomes, is exactly why his statements remain debated rather than resolved. And that's what makes this chapter so important. Keefe D didn't solve the mystery, he didn't close the case, but he changed the rules. From that moment on, the question was no longer, is this just a rumor? It became, why is this being taken seriously now? In a story this sensitive, involving loss of life, powerful figures, and decades of silence, every word matters. Every pause matters. And every name spoken publicly carries weight far beyond the sentence it appears in. Keefe D's statements didn't deliver answers. They delivered pressure. And once pressure enters a system built on silence, nothing stays the same.
Is saying that you want to see how serious the Vegas PD is going to take this case. Because Keefe D is people that he name dropped that you want to see if they're going to investigate?
Yeah, absolutely. That's why I'm curious to see how they plan to deal with the case, because he, in his own admissions, mentions other people. You know, are they going to say what happened to these people? Yes, Puffy being one of them. I don't know where that's going to lead, but I do believe there were accomplices. And I don't think all of them have been looked at. So, you know, because over the years, you know, it's a lot of years, you know, amongst the family, we talk, we want to figure it out too. We thinking certain things too. So, you know, we're waiting to see if we can trust this process. I feel like it's bigger because I haven't heard anything about that part of the story from the prosecutor's office. I haven't heard anything about Puffy from the prosecutor's office, even though Keefe D implicates him on these videos that they claim they're using to indict him. Even you got a Crip affiliate from somewhere, but you still not gonna talk about the guy that he mentions by name on the thing? Yeah, I mean, you know, it's exhausting. You know, or you know, I'm waiting to see how far they go, because that's what everybody's talking about. That's what everybody's talking about. What about Puffy? You know, so it would be weird that the prosecutor's office wouldn't know and address it. That's why I don't know whether to trust this shit or not. You know?
When 50 Cent finally addresses the topic, he does something very deliberate. He does not make direct claims. He does not point fingers. He does not frame his words as accusations. Instead, he talks about patterns. 50 Cent's approach has always been the same. Logic over rumors. He doesn't ask people to believe a story because it sounds shocking. He asks them to look at how things usually work when money, fear, and influence collide. That's why he focuses on motive rather than emotion. In his view, major events don't happen because of anger alone. They happen when incentives line up, when someone believes a situation threatens stability, profit, or control. He also talks about money, but not in a sensational way. Money in his framing isn't proof. It's a mechanism. It creates distance. It buys time. It reduces exposure. And in high-stakes environments, it often explains outcomes better than personal grudges ever could. What's important is who he doesn't focus on. 50 Cent consistently avoids centering individuals. Instead, he talks about systems, the structures that allow certain things to happen without leaving clear fingerprints. Systems where responsibility is spread out, decisions are indirect, and accountability becomes difficult to trace. Why systems? Because systems outlive people, and systems don't need confessions to function. This is also why implication matters more than accusation in his strategy. Accusations trigger defenses. They turn the conversation into a legal or emotional battle. Implications, on the other hand, force people to think. They invite examination rather than denial. By implying rather than accusing, 50 Cent keeps the focus on logic. Who had something to lose? Who benefited from stability returning? Who had the means to influence outcomes without being visible? He understands that once you accuse, the story becomes about whether you can prove it. But if you outline a pattern, the story becomes about whether the pattern makes sense. That's safer, and it's more powerful. It also explains why his words carry weight now. Decades of silence built credibility. So when he finally speaks, even indirectly, it lands differently. People listen because he hasn't been chasing attention. He's been watching. In cases like this, 50 Cent seems to believe that the truth rarely announces itself. It reveals itself through repetition, consistency, and the things people work hardest to avoid discussing. So when he speaks about money, motive, Soren, and systems without naming conclusions, he isn't dodging the issue. He's reframing it. Because sometimes the strongest statements aren't the loudest ones. They're the ones that make you pause, connect the dots yourself, and realize that the most important questions don't need accusations to be unsettling. They only need logic.
Condition. Because you got so many conflicting stories, right? You got some people that say that, Tupac was moving in the hospital. He was, talking in the hospital. But you being there, from your point of view, how was Tupac conditioned?
By the time I got there, remember I was coming from LA. So by the time I got there, he had tubes in his throat, in his nose, in his mouth. So he ain't talk to me, not verbally. He was conscious. He was trying to talk. He did want to talk, but he didn't actually verbalize any words. I always, that's one of gonna be one of the biggest mysteries in my life, because he was trying to tell me something. He was trying so hard. He was shaking the bed. He was looking at me, with his big old eyes, and I know he was trying to tell me something, but I don't know.
Something else I want to ask you, because I think it would be appropriate before we get off the Vegas thing, last thing, because I know I did an interview with Napoleon, and they all gave me their reasons why Afeni pulled the plug because of his condition, but it would be more appropriate since you was his brother. Afeni, her decision to pull the plug on him, from your point of view, what made her pull the plug? Respectfully.
Because he had already flatlined a couple of times. And she didn't want him to keep going through that. I think it was like twice before she, let him go. And that's reasonable. You know what I mean? When I was, when I found out,
Puffy was involved in the shooting.
Only they can answer that question. I have my own opinion, but I wouldn't slander their name like they did mine. I wouldn't say things that I knew, you know what I mean? I believe so. I do believe so. I have proved things that I can say that will back up my claim, but this is not for the world to know about. You know what I mean? It's between me and him, and only he knows. So every time he say it didn't happen, that's the only thing that makes this become an issue to everybody. Because you seen what I said in the Vibe article. I basically bowed out and was gonna go ahead about my life. The next issue, that wasn't even the next issue, because them cowards waited about 4 issues before they got their story together. 4 issues later, half of New Yorkers commenting on me getting shot. And before, they was all like, we didn't see nothing. In the first issue, we did, Vibe viewers. Nobody seen shit. The 4th issue, when they came back with a reply, everybody knew what I did. They knew what I said. I was acting. Who gets shot 5 times in acts? Oh, I didn't get shot 5 times in their vision. I only got shot once because they found the bullet. The police found it, but now they the cops. Now they doing detective work. They found the bullet. Oh, you found the bullet, huh? So what is this other shit in me then? What was the doctors talking about? What? Can you explain these other holes in me? How'd I get gunpowder all over me? That insulted my intelligence. So yes, I did say Thug Life was there. Yes, I bowed out, all of that. But when they said that,
they robbed at Quad Studios.
Well, I don't think I'm not going to say he knew exactly he was going to get robbed, but he knew he was going to get dealt with. Because he was up there with Andre Harrell, and he was with Jimmy Henchman. And even though I think Pac may have owed Jimmy some money, or he was being disrespectful with Jimmy. And Jimmy ain't the type of dude that you was gonna be disrespectful for, because he had some real wolves. And Jimmy was about it himself. You know what I mean? So now, in that essence, Puff is up there in the office with him. They know they about to deal with Pac, you know what I'm saying? I don't know the extent that Jimmy told him what they was gonna do to Pac, or he's gonna get dealt with or whatever like that. But I know Puff had a whip to what was going on.